Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a raging dumpster fire and a functional adult. And let's be honest, most days, not even some days, we're all a bit of a dumpster fire. And that's okay. Joining us this week is a guest who definitely is going to help us debunk, normalize, and move through a really hot topic that we all have seemed to normalize in our society. So I want everybody to give a warm Bachelor welcome to Kori Strobl. Kori, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. It's really nice to be here.
Where are you on this big blue sphere that we call Earth right now?
Yeah, I'm sitting in Oceanside, California right now. And it's
I'm
beautiful outside. I think it's like, 80 degrees. We got a little humidity. So us Californians are melting under the weight of it, but we're okay.
I think it's human across the board, no matter where we are. I feel like it's a humidity spike. It's a national pandemic that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
But welcome in.
Thank you.
Like I was saying, today's topic, I feel like, has affected every single person at some point in their life. You can't not admit it. I'm not going to say it's not your whole personality, but I feel like we've all dealt with a little bit of people pleasing,
Sure.
whether that's in our teeny bopper years,
Hmm.
because middle school and high school was huge, I feel like,
Yeah.
or whether you have a more personalized, intrinsic, like deep rooted sense of people pleasing that
Hmm.
is more pertinent to your day to day.
Yeah.
And it's really a silent killer in a lot of potential relationships before and during
Yeah.
the process.
I think that is a fair, unscientific way to say it that just is felt, right? We don't need stats. I think so many of us can feel it, right? Being both on both sides of that equation, being faced with someone who's people pleasing, and then also in the moments that maybe you're doing it as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we don't always notice that in the moment that we are people pleasing, or it's either something that has become routine for us.
Sure. Sure.
And it's really one of those moments where I feel like hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
or if you're performing as soon as the curtain kind of closes and
Hmm.
you're back in your safe space, you can
Yeah.
breathe.
Sure.
You're just like, I can't believe I did it again.
What I find is that people pleasing are behaviors that come about because of anxiety.
Mm.
Right. And usually what we're anxious about is another person's response or reaction in a given situation. We're so anxious about it that we will actually attempt to manage it and control for it. Right. And so our people pleasing behavior is trying to manage and control the other person's reaction or response because we're so anxious about what it might mean. And
And
so
that,
that can be across the board where you do it a lot, kind of that's your primary response is just to always feel anxious about someone else's response. Or sometimes maybe it's just with really important essential people like a parent or siblings or lovers or like certain friends. So it's usually for some people it can be just the inner circle where the connection matters the most, where the risk feels the highest, right? That's where the anxiety maybe comes up more. So they might not people please in other areas of their lives, but maybe just a few relationships really suck them into that.
no, I can definitely believe that there is a hierarchy, I feel like, to relationships. So when you feel like there's more at stake, you feel like there's more at stake, that you might start to lean into that. What do I need to do in order to either keep or not disrupt this relationship?
Yeah, which is strange when you think about it, because what you're essentially doing is you're prioritizing the relationship and the connection over your own authenticity. And then in which case the question becomes, then what are you relating to? What is the connection? Because you are authentically not there anymore. What happens is we like grab that connection, we grab the relationship and we're holding on to it so tight that we lose the ability to just be ourselves in that. And so now who are they relating to? Who's showing up? Right. And it's super innocent, but at the same time, it's that anxiety around a fear of the loss of that connection. And so learning how to deal with that anxiety in a new way and also learning how to eventually maybe not even be anxious, but it's a progression, but learning how to deal with that initial anxiety is really essential in being able to move to the other side of this behavior.
For sure. And One thing I really want to get into is I feel like this is a term that's been around for a while. It's not a new term.
Mhm.
I I would even say it's been around maybe before the internet really became like super big.
Sure.
I feel like we've always said, "Oh, they're people pleasers." Like I feel like that's
Mhm.
just one of those terms that's been around forever.
Yeah.
So I want to spend a little time to see if you think or if you've noticed how that term has kind of changed with the emergence of the internet,
Mhm.
because I feel like that took people pleasing to the nth degree almost, because we had so many more people to please.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I was laughing at myself. I took a 2-year break from social media because I was people pleasing the algorithms, right? And I was people pleasing people that I didn't even know online, just trying to like, what do they want? Who did it, and all of a sudden, instead of me presenting myself authentically on social media, I was presenting to get, right, a certain reaction. In other words, I was trying to manage the people on the other end of the screen's reaction and looking at the likes and looking for the validation. Did that video hit? Did that video hit? Right. And I was like, I can't take this. I need to, me and my people pleaser self need a break from social media. So I took a serious break from it. And I recently came back as my work and people pleasing has grown. And I'm able to be engaged in it now in a whole new way. And it's really helped a lot. Doesn't do much for my algorithm, but I'm tired of living my life for this figment like algorithm, right? And instead, it's become a library of content. So if you want to find some information out there that I'm sharing, you can look on my library of content. So I get a lot of views, but not a lot of likes and not a lot of like engagement, which again, it's fine. I hear people will come up to me, friends will be like, "Hey, I love that video that you said blah, blah, blah the other day." And I'm like, "Oh, they actually did watch it." I'm not getting any sign other than there's views. And you know what? That's it. I don't care. I put it out. It's gone. You do what you want to do with it. And that, like, I feel so much cleaner and clearer in that realm.
That's what I told people. I guess I really haven't like said it recently, but in the earlier seasons of the show, I tell people this is my therapy. I get to it's beautiful because it's my show. I get to pick the topics, but I get to work
Yeah.
through personal issues that I have with other guests that I have on, or I'll sit down and get new perspectives on things. But realistically, when I first started this show, I was like, well, I guess I'm becoming an influencer because that's literally what we do as relationship or like as coaches. We
Hmm.
influence people into making decisions or new perspectives. But it's like, I don't want to be one of those influencers that we see on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Well, TikTok wasn't really a thing when the show started. So that's that's another wild thing. But I didn't want to be like one of those people because there was a period I was spending like 30, 40, 50 hours in front of a screen
Mm,
flogging likes, like trying to answer all the comments. And it became my whole personality.
yeah.
And I was like, I've never felt so disconnected than
Yeah.
when I'm connected to like literally all these people. So then I stopped. I think we stopped for like 2 years because I was like, I just can't do it. I was having fatigue. I was having burnout because I started to change my and compromise my content,
Hmm.
my goals in order to get more views, more likes. And I was like, this isn't me. So I'm right there with you. I was like, if 1,000 people see this, I love that for them. If
Hmm.
5 people see that, I love that for them. If everybody and their mom hits like, share, and subscribe, cool beans. But the message will find who it's meant to find, and
Yeah.
that's kind of my biggest thing.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think that is evolved is people are talking about people pleasing. People pleasing, I think, people used to think that people pleasers were just doormats, right? And I think what we've come to understand is that there's a lot of really strong, very competent people who are people pleasers. In fact, being really competent can enhance someone's people pleasing because it's like, I got it. I got it. I don't need you. I don't have needs because I can survive without needs. I can take care of that, and that. I'm so good. And so I think there's a growing understanding that being a people pleaser doesn't just mean you can't say no to stuff. It also means that you can be overly responsible for a lot of things because of your level of competency. And I think the thread throughout all of it, and I wish we could change the name, and I'm on a campaign to change it, but I keep using people pleasing, in what I share because it's what people
Right.
know,
It's
right?
okay.
So but really it's self-abandonment, right?
Okay.
We're abandoning ourselves. There's like no self there anymore. Right. And so that's what happens in our anxiety is that we're so afraid that we just live for the other person. We pay attention to the other person. We're so other referenced that we don't know ourselves. I know myself when I'm in a room by myself. You bring someone in who's essential to me, all of a sudden, my center of self moves over to them.
Hmm.
Right. That's where I become self-abandoned. As soon as someone important walks in the room, but me in and of myself, I'm good.
Just leave me in a box and I'm
Right.
Schroding. Like I'm solid.
Yeah.
I'm present and fulfilled. No,
Yeah.
I get that. And that's the thing I feel like the internet really does get wrong. And I like that you're on this campaign to redefine it from people pleasing to self abandonment. People pleasers really aren't doormats. As you were talking about that, I don't know why this went to astrology talk for me. Get a Capricorn. They're so self sufficient. They can do everything. They'll put the whole team on their back and they'll just grind
Mm-hmm.
as a Capricorn. I was like, no, that's so true. But I have noticed that's also a little bit of self abandonment because it's not that I don't trust other people to do the work or to do the thing. It's just that I want to see other people succeed or I want the best for other people. So I'll try to do so much to set them up for success
Sure.
where I may be running myself ragged or burning out, or I now have nobody else to talk to because everybody else is behind me, not beside me. And so I was like, you're right. There are so many different types of people pleasers that we can't just shine a light on the one generic stereotype.
No, not at all. And, one of the ones you're describing is sort of the rescuer. And what happens with a rescuer is that we deny people the growth that comes from struggle. Right. And so we run around trying to make their lives easier. But, you got gritty the way you got there because you struggled. Right. And so here we are running around trying to clear the path for everybody. But your path, you had to clear it yourself. And that mattered. It was meaningful that you had to clear it yourself. So it's one of those things where it's like we think we're doing something out of kindness and generosity and love. But at what point does it become where we're actually handicapping somebody and we're no longer serving them anymore? And we're just serving ourselves and our own ego because we got it. We can take care of them. We got it all. It's really a tricky thing. And so the line becomes, am I giving past my point of responsibility? Am I giving past my point of capacity? I have people that are very competent just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Because, yeah, go ahead.
So for everybody listening, watching right now, I told her I selfishly did this episode. This is a Josh episode because I have a little bit of sibling drama going on and people pleasing came up. But as you said that, it's now making me shift my perspective on our own accountability within this situation because I have a sibling who says, I bumped my head, so you don't have to.
Mm,
And that's also like kind of the same mantra I live by is, I've gone through the hard thing. So why will I not, save you from this landmine? I was like, hey, just follow my footsteps. And then a step further, I feel like that's what parents do because they're like, hey, I've been there, I've done that. Like, I know this sucks, but trust me, do as I say, not as I do. Or, they tell us to do all these things that we don't understand. And I was like, wait, are parents people pleasers too? Or by me trying to shield you, am I now abandoning self? Or am I overstepping? Because you're right, there is this tricky balance. I was like, no, I don't like this. I don't like this little seesaw because I had my feet firmly planted on the ground. Now you're shaking up my world and I wasn't quite ready for that.
yeah. Well, I think it's the degree of investment you have in it. So like what you were just describing, like, hey, I'm going to walk in front of you and you can just step in my footsteps. Well, the invitation is there. But if you're invested in it and them stepping in your footsteps, right? And what if they want to step just a little off, right? Or what if your footsteps were the right footsteps for you based on all of your past but what if those aren't the right footsteps for them? Or maybe they're supposed to get this much of what you're offering them, but the rest of it was always meant for them to do themselves. right? And so, but if you're invested in being the one to show them the way, then you get a little bit of savior complex, and you're denying them the same opportunities that you had.
Yeah, it's always I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I feel it, but I don't know where it comes from, but I think just as long as I've been alive, that's just kind of been like the rule book is
Hmm.
you always hear people say, I want to give my kids a better life than I had.
Sure.
Or, when you have a partner or a teammate, like that's just always the thing is like if I know that 2 plus 2 is 4 and you're struggling, like you can't remember your twos or your timetables, I'm gonna help you. Like I feel like it's my job as your friend, as like this person who has relation to you to help give you the tools so that you can like get your math together. But you're right, because if I'm always just giving the answer, and it's so hard because you want to lead them to the water.
Yeah.
However, you have to also let them know that like, hey, there are predators around the water, so you need to be aware, like on your awareness. Or I was like, hey, it's a long walk, so you need to build your stamina up. There are tools that we built while bumping our heads while doing these hard things. But when we deprive people of that, it really is an overstep. And it's not like you're leaving a clueless baby in an advanced situation that they have no tools to comprehend or to like make it through.
I mean, I know my parents tried to embark a bunch of wisdom upon me that I was not ready to hear.
Yeah.
Right. And it came later. Later, I was like, that's what they meant by that. And I wasn't trying to disrespect them or anything. It was not my time. And I needed to learn it when I learned it. And, I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. And there's a lot where, I try and teach them things, but they don't want it. So, but it's there. It's like for me, I want to make sure I'm creating the invitation and the opportunities. And if they take them, great. If they don't, I don't know how it serves me to force them to take something, right? Because now they don't even understand it. And so now they're just doing it because they were told, but they don't have all the wisdom and the grit that I got to get there. Right. And so, again, I think handing people tools is a very kind and generous thing. If you get really invested in them using those tools to the point where you lose your mind and you lose yourself, trying to get them to use these tools and understand the tools and know why the tools are important. And right, that's when you start to lose yourself because of the level of investment in them. It's sort of like, in a way, it's kind of about you at that moment. Like, right? You've gotten it confused. You're all up and over there, but the true source of your discontent is over here. I'm not comfortable with them struggling. I'm not comfortable with them finding their way. I'm not comfortable with their timeline. I would like them to learn this lesson today, not 3 weeks from now, because it's really uncomfortable watching them fumble.
I mean, and that goes to like I feel like legacy as somebody who's trained a lot of people or mentored a lot of people. We've all heard this before is don't make me look bad. Or like extension of me. So I don't know why this wasn't clicking for me previously or in this situation. Maybe I was too close to it. Trying to put people on my timeline. I always say this is like, dude, you can't run somebody else's race. You'll get there when you get there. However, when I help you, when I'm training you, you'll get there when I tell you to get there. I was
Yeah,
like, the double standard. I can admit that. All right. She got me. She got me. But
that's
that's
funny.
really is a valid point that I don't think a lot of people think about or realize that, hey, and I say this, I can't be more invested into your life than you are. So you're right. Just the offer of the tools, of the knowledge is all we can do. And that's a big thing. And it takes time. And not everybody can do that right away to be like, you know what? I've offered the hand. I've laid out the tools. I gave them the key. They don't want to use it. Like, I just got to move on. I can't get caught up right here because I still have a journey to go on to.
Yeah. And we can still believe in people, right? Like we don't have to feel rejected because they don't pick up the tools we're offering right now. We don't have to be like, forget you. We can just believe in them and be like, just like I had all the resources to figure this out, dude, you're going to find all the resources to figure this out. And when you're ready, you're going to use them, right? And we can believe in them. Doesn't mean we have to hang out with them. Like if the situation is such that those tools are necessary to have a healthy relationship with them. But there's also this degree of like, hey, you're going to get there when you get there. And I trust that you will. right? Because I did.
I mean, and that really is the key. Letting go is hard. Like as a parent, you know that it's hard. We suck at it, but it's something we have to do. Now, everybody has a different story, but when did you really realize that I'm not just nice? I'm not just compassionate. I just don't care a lot. Like I might be losing me, giving me up, putting myself on the back burner in my relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched myself do it relationship after relationship. I've watched myself do it. I've recovered from it. I've done it in friendships. I've done it in romantic partnerships. So I was watching myself do it while I was doing it. And then in between relationships, recovering myself and feeling like I had it all figured out now. I'm good. I know myself. I've found my truth, right? And then boom, right back in another relationship because it's the same thing. I always felt okay by myself, but that's not the issue for me. That's not the wounding for me. It's in relationship to somebody else. And so this is something that was always going to take being in relationship with somebody else for me to deal with and recover. And not all the relationships can recover from it. Right. We were talking about people pleasing. And I said, one of the biggest determinants of whether we're going to people please is that anxiety piece of how is the other person going to respond. So what you're talking about in those moments are points of tension. And usually points of tension are points of differences. Right. And so if I am afraid of how this difference is going to cause tension in our relationship, I'm going to try and minimize that difference. I'm going to try and adapt, be flexible, or I'm going to try and get them to adapt and be flexible in order so that this doesn't land or impact us in a negative way where the tension is unbearable. And so then what happens is I go around trying to get rid of tension, trying to avoid conflict in order for me to feel okay. Right. And so then all of a sudden there's no me because I am always just trying to manage the tension and the conflict and manage those differences. Well, the thing is that not every relationship can handle those differences. Some differences can be negotiated. If both people can show up as equals and say, hey, this is what's true for me and this is what's true for me. Great. Let's figure out how to create something out of this. Then something healthy can be created. But if this is who I am and that's who you are, and we're just like, so there is such a thing as a mismatch, right? And if I'm prioritizing the relationship over the truth, then I might fight and stay in a mismatch relationship for a very long time, just trying to avoid the recognition of those differences that are irreconcilable.
No, that's why people say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because that's a really big thing. If we all have a hill that we're okay dying on, but if it's at the expense of your relationship, then like you just have to deal with your consequence. I love that. For people who are dealing with this self-abandonment, the issue may not be when they're by themselves. It really may just display when they're in a group, when they are with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're alone, you can't practice being together.
Yes,
So it's a really difficult thing,
it is. It is.
because you can say all these things, you can have all these ideas, and then it's like when you have a crush, you're like, I know what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to like wear. Here's how it's going to go. And then you get in front of them and you're just like, buy it, or you're just stumbling. So it's like I said, it's hard to practice being together when you're alone. So would you say that you're still recovering? Have you made it to a solid? Okay, let's back up a step. The name of the show, the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad.
Mhm.
So are we a bachelorette? Are you in a relationship? Are you still trying to figure out how relationships work and where to find one?
Yeah. I'm married and
Yeah.
I have 2 kids, and I woke up to my people pleasing patterns within this marriage. And so the marriage in and of itself right now is actually in a renegotiation and really trying to figure out, how can we navigate these differences and what does that look like? And so I'm in a place where things are a bit messy and undefined. But I can talk about me and I can tell you that me in and of myself, I am doing so much better because I am able to stay with myself more while being in the room with other people. So, that's what's always been hard for me in the room with other people. I leave myself. I go, something that a lot of people pleasers say is, I'm okay if you're okay. I'm okay if the people I love are okay. I'm okay if, right. So then what happens when they actually are okay? Now what? Are you okay? No. Now you have to keep them okay.
Yeah.
Right. So at what point are you really okay? You're never okay because you're always trying to make sure they're okay. Right.
Right.
And so even when you land there, you don't stay there. Right. So part of the challenge for a people pleaser is this sort of over responsibility in other people's lives. We become so referenced ourselves. I'm okay if they're okay. That means I need the outside to be okay in order for me to not feel anxious. Right. And it's never going to work. It's never going to land, at least not for long. Right. So healing for me has been me saying, am I okay? Period. Like, if it's peaceful out there, if it's chaotic out there, am I okay? And so I've had to, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm not okay. But instead of trying to go over there and make the situation better in order for me to feel better, I'm learning and continuing to grow in my capacity to stay with my own feelings and stay with my own experience, even while stuff is happening out there. Right. So I'm learning, it's a skill I didn't know that skill. Right. I knew how to take care of everybody else. So this is a skill that I'm having to grow in. How do I sit with my emotions? How do I not make every feeling I have a problem that needs to be solved? And instead, what if I just sit with them and maybe even just go underneath them a little bit and see what's there? What truth, what preference, what desire, what thing do I need to know about myself? There's information here. And if I don't sit in it and with it, I don't get that information. And so I'm really learning, and that's the skill set that's been required. So, I was asked recently, like, what's one habit that people can develop? And I'm like, learning how to feel themselves, learning how to be with themselves. It's not an external thing that you need to do. It's not drink more water, although that's a really good idea. In this situation, it's what's going on in my gut right now? What just happened in my heart when that, right? And staying here. And that is a tricky, tricky thing to do while other people are having feelings all around you.
I tell people that my superpower is dissociation. Because I was like, maybe it's because I'm like partially an only child. Maybe it's because I stayed in trouble in the 90s. So I spent a lot of time in my room or just like
Mm-hmm.
writing on the chalkboard. So I could sit in a sea of chaos and be A-okay because I'm just worried about me.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can focus on me no matter really what's going on around me. Or I'm also at the point in my life where my peace is my top priority. Like I will let
Mm-hmm.
everything else go, people, places, jobs, in order to protect my peace. And so if things around me are disturbing or interrupting that, I was like, nope, don't have time for it. They don't get energy. I can block it out. But not everybody can do that. Most people can't do that. You're right. They're so worried either about the reaction or the response, how they need to react to like what's going around them or how people are responding so they know what to do next. As a coach, as a friend, as a family member, I can tell you, dude, just be like me and just don't worry about it. Like you can only do you.
Mm-hmm.
Even though to me that sounds like tangible, actionable advice, for somebody who has that level of anxiety, who they don't know what to do with their hands, like they can't sit still,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really big ask. And they have
It
no
is.
idea. They don't necessarily have the tools to actually start that at all.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
like a really,
So imagine telling somebody who's a people pleaser, based on what we just said, to start setting boundaries and speak your truth into a relationship. It's going to trigger, like, they don't have the tools, right? So you're telling them to take this outer action without them having any tools for what to do with the repercussion, because setting a boundary or speaking your truth that might be different in a relationship is it's going to spike the anxiety inside. And so you can't just say, do that and like, you'll feel empowered. No, you won't. You're going to feel worse first, right? Like you're going to feel terrified and scared and a whole bunch of other things before you feel empowered. And so having to develop those tools inside of what to do when the other person has a reaction, that's essential before you start throwing people in the fire and doing the very thing that they're so terrified of, which is being disruptive, right? Being disruptive to a connection,
Mhm.
right? That's why we call it people pleasing, because the alternate feels like disrupting. When really it's just like, hey, sometimes our truths don't match, or sometimes we disagree, or sometimes there's just a difference that we can't get past, or that we, just need to explore from a different lens. But if we're not speaking that, then we miss all of that opportunity to do any of that work. But first, If you can't deal with that anxiety and deal with those feelings, you're going to set a boundary and you're going to back down fast, right? You're going to be, and people usually say, oh, I feel guilty. You don't feel guilty. You feel scared. You feel anxious about the other person's response and reaction, right? That's the overwhelming feeling.
And it's so tough. A lot of this stems from our childhood, just to be honest.
Yeah.
Our environment, how we were raised, how we felt, what we experienced through that early adolescence really set those defaults. It created our factory default in a sense. And it's a lot harder to change as you get older, especially if you haven't changed your environment.
Mm.
Just
Well,
like,
sometimes we keep recreating the same environment, right?
right,
So that's often what happens actually for a lot of people pleasers is that they'll just keep recreating it as if this time they'll get it right, as if this time it'll feel better, right? But if you keep choosing the people that lack capacity, then you're just going to keep hitting the same walls over.
for sure. And this isn't just romantically, this is just across the
Yep.
board. Platonically, like the friends you surround yourself with, the jobs that you keep taking, the people that you think are good for you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things that I say is I could be attracted to you, but that doesn't mean I like you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that also helps me set myself apart is because I can like a certain situation or I could be comfortable somewhere, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to stay there, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do this thing.
Right.
I would love for everybody to be happy, or I would love to be around some of the people that I like. But like I said not too long ago, is I can't stay somewhere where my peace, where my soul is disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a lot of things. Some people are afraid to jump. They have this freeze. They don't fight, they don't fly. They just stay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you're trying to get into like the jump rope. If you're just on the outside, like you keep missing the window where you could get into something better.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody else is just going and going and you're like,
Yeah. There's, when it comes to a lot of people pleasers, it's what you spoke to that it sounds like you are able to do really well. And that's the difference between chemistry and capacity, right? And chemistry is that piece where it feels good, and we make that initial connection. And it's like, it can almost feel like magic sometimes. But just because you have chemistry with somebody doesn't mean that you have the same capacity to be in a relationship. And you're right, it's not just romantic. This has happened with me with a lot of friends where that chemistry was there and it was like, "Ooh, you're so sparkly and magical and I want to like hang out with you," right? And then all of a sudden it's like they're flaky and just go with the flow, but I'm never in their flow and they're so crisis driven and busy and drama that there's no space for me. And yet I keep showing up for them. Right. So it's just a mismatch of capacity. So I do think that maybe we hold our hat with connection and what was the word I called it? Come
chemistry,
on. Chemistry.
capacity.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
kept
yeah,
seeing a C. There was a C there.
yeah.
Chemistry.
I was like, wait, is this a
Hang
trick
our,
question?
I know. I got it. You were listening. Good. It was a good test. You got it. Yeah. That we hang our hat on chemistry and we make that mean more than it needs to mean. Right. And so what you're saying is like, hey, I can enjoy some chemistry with you, but I'll have to make it mean more that now I'm going to invest myself in a way where I'm disturbing my peace just to enjoy this little bit of chemistry I have with you. The truth is we have chemistry with a whole lot of people. Does not mean we need to have all those people in our lives. Right. And so who do we want to invest in and who is able to invest back in us? Right. And that's a question that we just, again, a lot of people pleasers are so competent. I know for me, I just thought I could do it all. It's fine. You're not showing up. I can do it. I'll just do it all for us. But there's a relational field that requires two people. Right. And that is the place where it's like, you can't do it all. You can't do the whole relational field by yourself.
It takes two to tango. Otherwise, you're just spinning in circles. And that looks silly from the outside. Just saying. Have you ever tried to tango by yourself? I haven't, but I can imagine it, and it looks
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't look as good. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So it's not really a game within a game today,
Okay.
but I always like to take a quick little quickies and just like get to know our guests because sometimes it's hard to accept things when you don't know the people that it's coming from.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm gonna give you a couple situations, a couple quick questions,
Great.
and we're gonna try to get to gauge who Kori is, like what
Okay.
Kori's responses are, so we can see the validity in the statements that we've been making so far. So the practicality of people pleasing is you have to be around people. So in the context of a relationship, would you say that being the cool girlfriend or the low maintenance boyfriend sometimes is just the easiest way to avoid the conflict or having to address real issues in our relationships?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I prided myself being low maintenance for a really long time. And what it just meant is that I never tested the other people's capacity whatsoever as far as whether they could actually show up, right? Capacity is revealed in moments of tension. When there is a conflict, when there is a difference, how that other person shows up tells you so much about what they can handle and who they are with their emotions, right? Like with these big emotions.
Yeah.
And so being low maintenance is a way that I avoided that a lot. Right. And what was interesting is I avoided the tension and the confrontation with them, but then I would sit in tension and feel confronted inside of myself. So it was sort of like I'm more comfortable as long as the tension is inside of me. Right. Because I feel like I have some level of control over that. But if the tension is living between us or in you, that is so scary because I don't know what you're going to do with it. I don't know what's going to happen. Right. So I'll just swallow it. I'll be that low maintenance person. And meanwhile, I'm the one who is holding all of that tension. And so I've done that a lot and it's miserable. But then I get to have this like, look how cool I am, low maintenance girl.
Right.
Right. And I feel all snazzy and cool until I'm kind of losing my shit later on because all that tension builds up and it comes out in a moment of crazy.
That's a dumpster fire if I've ever heard one, but it's true. It's true. Now, would you say that that kept you from having a lot of like serious or long-term relationships, or is that what kept you in the long-term relationships is bottling all that up?
Yeah, I think it was more the second one that I ended up staying in relationships way too long because I was sort of avoiding those moments of tension to the point where, most of my relationships ended because I realized I was trying to get something out of a dry well. There wasn't anything there. And I just would get to the point where I was so exhausted. And then I was like, ugh, what am I doing? And so it would feel like I'd outgrow the person or they just didn't have what it would take to actually be in relationship with me. But if I wasn't so low maintenance, right, then I might have gotten to that place a lot sooner. Right. But again, that point of tension, I was trying to avoid it as long as possible.
I could see how, like you said, that would cause a rift. And it's so hard when these rifts are silent, in my
Mm,
opinion, because it's really like that phenomenon where you're like looking down at your phone and the next thing you look up and you're like, where am I at? What was I doing?
sure.
It feels like it's like something that just comes out of nowhere. That was a better thing. I don't know what that example was, but that's what I meant to say. I was like, yeah, like, like, and I was like,
There, we're getting there.
no, those are just words that mean nothing. I was like, maybe most people probably don't do what I do. Sometimes we'll look and then we'll like look down, we'll get distracted, and then we'll come back to our senses and we're like, how did I get here? Like, where did the time go? Like,
Mhm.
how did I end up from A to B? But really, there were probably quite subtle signs that both parties ignored because it was easier to have that tension inside their bodies than
Oh,
between them.
I'm let's be real. I mean, I bought my own bullshit, right? Like the idea of me being low maintenance, I wasn't just presenting it outwardly. I was also convincing myself inwardly. So I was talking myself out of my preferences and needs. And right. So I was kind of doing it to myself, not
Right.
just presenting it on the outside. So yeah, there would be a slow burn and this tension inside, but it was also really familiar because it was pretty much how I was in a lot of relationships. So it
Yeah.
didn't seem any different. Didn't seem wrong. It's
Familiar.
just
Yeah.
what you do, right? It's just how it goes. So, but the truth is relationships take maintenance on both people's parts. So being low maintenance, it's sort of like, oh, I don't need much from you. That's not true. A relational field needs two people who are equals showing up in that space. And so, in the way of saying low maintenance, I'm saying it's all right. You don't need to show up in the space. I'll show up more, right? Because usually low maintenance people, they might be low maintenance, but it's because they're giving so much. They're doing the other side of it a lot, right? And so then I look valuable.
And you're like, how could they ever want to leave me? Because
I'm doing it
I
all.
make, I was like, great. I was like, I make life so easy for them. Like, what could they
Yes,
ever want? Who could be better?
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I've never done that.
No, what?
Oh, no, but like I said, this is something I feel like we all have done at some point of our lives,
Sure.
personally, professionally, romantically. Now, I want to say, because we kind of talked about it, and it's this misconception that the internet like kind of tells us, like, you can grow out of your people pleasing or your self abandonment. But really, I don't think that's the case. I think you're a prime example. It takes a lot of active work.
Yeah, for sure. It is an ongoing, I mean, it happens. I just caught myself doing it with my daughter the other day. She put on a show that she's like a few episodes ahead of me and she thought I was sleeping. So she put it on and I was listening and I found out that Gary dies. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't want to know that he dies. Right. But I was laying there and I was laying there in the tension and I could feel it like, oh no, I'm about to hear something I don't want to hear. And I didn't say anything. And I was like, what did I do? And so then all of a sudden she said, is it okay that I have this on? I was like, actually, no, I don't want you to have this on. And I said, that was my people pleasing. I'm so sorry. And she's just like, and so we had this really great interaction, but it was so interesting to watch. I laid there trying to talk myself out of it. I laid there trying to say, it's no big deal. It's fine. Right. Like it wasn't like I was actively saying, oh, my people pleasing is activated right now and I'm not saying anything and I should be saying anything. That's not what it felt like. It felt like me talking myself out of my feelings and the tension inside of me. When all I really needed to say was, hey, can you put something else on? I am hearing it. It would have been so simple. Right. But I still caught myself doing it. But those moments certainly go by faster now. I'm not living in it like I used to.
And that's really impressive that you've had like that conversation. Are your kids like
No,
little is such a
yeah, my daughter's 14 and my son is 11.
okay. So they are at that semi-conscious, like with the whole like, fulfilled identity state. Okay. In my head, when I first heard this, I was like, wow, you're having this conversation with a 7-year-old? Like, that's really impressive. And I was like, wait, no, like, our kids could be like 20 for all I know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've tried to bring some of this conversation to them from a young age. They're really both very emotionally sophisticated in ways that surprise me even. So I am very impressed with their level of awareness on that level. And the kind of conversations I can have with them just blows me away sometimes.
That's what I was talking about earlier that I kind of dropped off from is I think that like we're not taught how to be people at any real stage. We're not taught how to apologize. We're not taught how to coexist peacefully or like with other people. For the most part, we're not taught how to set boundaries. They just give us a bunch of rules and tell us not to question it, or they don't show that it's math. I don't know why I keep using this example, but it's math. They give us the answers, they don't show us the work, and they're like,
Right.
do this problem. I don't know how to do this. I just knew that answer because you told me. I don't know how to do my work. I don't know how to figure it out myself. So I feel like we need to do a better job. And like, it's up to parents. I feel more people should just take responsibility for having these conversations with younger people is if you want to be an emotionally sophisticated, mature adult, you have to have these kind of conversations and tools at an earlier age. That way,
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk
yeah,
about that because I don't know how old you are, but I know we're neither of us are young spring chickens, and so I think about my parents' generation. So keep in mind, psychology, talking about emotions,
for
this is
sure.
all new.
Yeah.
This is some new stuff. We are privileged to even have this kind of dialogue because back in the day, it was like, all I got to do is keep you alive and fed and get you out of the house, right? Like that, that was it. Now, all of a sudden, everyone's having all these emotions and all of this stuff. So you had mentioned childhood. So I'm going to share a little bit more about myself as
Yeah.
as example of what this was. So I tend to be a very emotionally sensitive person, a very emotionally aware person. And I grew up in a household where my parents were not. They were not emotionally sophisticated, emotionally mature. They had no tools whatsoever. But why would I ever expect them to? Right? I was born in 75. Nothing was happening before that, right? As far as that would educate them, that would help them. Their parents certainly didn't have any skill set, right? So it's like, so they didn't have it. So I was raised in a home where I seemed like the problem child and I was the caretaker at the same time. I was both. because I was the one who was more emotionally attuned to everything. And I held the emotional mood of the room. I counseled my parents' marriage when I was 13 years old. And I would go between the two of them. And the house had this like thick silence between them all the time that I felt that I was attuned to. And I was constantly trying to manage and make better in my house. Right. So that was me. I grew up in that. So I didn't feel emotionally met at all. How could my parents? I probably scared the crap out of my parents with the level of emotions and sensitivities that I had that they didn't know what the hell to do with. Now, that doesn't make either of us wrong. That doesn't mean there was something wrong with my sensitivity or my awareness. It just meant that there was a mismatch. They could not meet me where I was because they didn't have the skill set. Right. But I think that's true of a whole generation. All of a sudden, we're a bunch of grownups that have all this language, all this information, and
Right.
we're going back and telling our parents how they screwed up.
And they're
And our
loving that. Yeah.
right? And it's sort of like what? They didn't have the tools. No one talked to them about this when they were growing up. Like, how can we go back and do that? So I almost feel like we're this in-between generation that we're developing skill sets and learning things on our own. Right. And that
Right.
now we have an opportunity to share it with the next generation, but it's not because it was given to us. It's because we had to figure this out and earn it on our own. And there's nothing wrong with that. We didn't need to be rescued, right? This was our generation's task. Our generation was meant to figure this out and learn something from nothing.
Sure. And we've talked about how they say that a lot of our responses are a lot of the things we do. Okay, I started talking like you've been with us since day one. We had a conversation maybe in like season 2 with a guest, and they were like, a lot of the millennial personality is acting out of spite. So a
Mm.
lot of the things we do is to kind of like spite our parents from like 5, 6, 8-year-old us to be like, I can buy these shoes. Like I have money now. I have the McDonald's
Mhm.
money. Like I can do this because I'm grown now. And that's one of the things that I feel like we do a lot is we try to heal our inner child in our day to day. But realistically, like we're not children anymore. We start to parent. We're parenting of like, what did 5-year-old me need instead of what does my child need? Or as somebody who's 30, 35, 40 now, what do I actually think? Like we're not bringing our present day self into it. So I was like, well, a 5-year-old shouldn't be leading another 5-year-old into developing. So that's why I love our generation because we're bumping our heads. We're trying to get it all figured out. Sometimes we're overcorrecting. Sometimes we're not correcting enough. But I think in
That's
the end
figuring it out
overall,
though, isn't it?
yeah,
That
I was
is
like,
that
yeah,
is figuring it out.
in the end, like it'll come back to the middle.
Yeah. I agree with you. And like oftentimes we are trying to essentially we try and recreate our childhood in order to heal it this time. But the trick is we can never go back and give our inner child what they didn't get when we were
Right. Yeah,
young.
exactly.
Like, and whatever was missed was missed. It's gone. Right. And it to the degree that we keep trying to give it something that it never got, then it's like we never let it grieve then. We never let that part of ourselves grieve what wasn't available. And then those woundings happened in a very particular relationship that's super, super unique. The parent child relationship is very unique. It is a high dependency relationship. It is a out of balance power differential that is not or should not be there when you're adults, right? When you're in adult relationships, you should be two peers that are equal and relating from that place of equality. But if you keep trying to recreate a childhood wound where that dependency thing happened, you're going to recreate those dependencies over and over and over again, trying to fix it, right? So part of healing is letting whatever happened back there, whatever didn't happen back there, grieve it. Like that's it. That was your lot in life. That was the beginning of your hero's journey. Whatever that was yours. And now this is your life to now do. But I think you got to grieve. I think you got to let that little child say like, it didn't happen for you. Right. And now from this point forward, I got you. Right. That didn't happen, but now I got you. And now we're going to create something beautiful and whatever, but you don't have to be dependent on these adults that don't exist anymore. You're dependent on me now.
I was going to say, what's one sentence that some of those people who may be abandoning self should start staying, should start saying in
Well,
order
I
to
love
reinvest in themselves?
Yeah, well, I actually loved your misspeak in that moment, because I think the biggest thing is just to stay with ourselves, right? Because that is the self-abandonment is leaving. The image that sometimes comes to me is that it's like I have this young part of myself that's sad and upset and feels really alone in a room. And I go in there and I go, don't worry, honey, I'll be right back. I'm going to find somebody for you. And what do? I leave her alone in the room and I shut the door and I go run around looking for
Yeah.
someone to help her feel better. Right. And that's essentially what happens. And so the one thing I would say is go sit in the freaking room. And that is the place where the healing begins, at learning to stay with yourself and feel what's true for you, like acknowledge what's true for you, grieve what needs grieving, right? Like that's the place.
Being present solves so many of life's problems because so often we check out physically or mentally. Just actually being present and staying the course, you'll be so surprised at how much can change or what you start to see. You'll be like, I never saw this. I never noticed this. Yeah, because when you felt that tension, you'd look away or you'd walk away or you give up. Because our
Well,
generation, we were really good at that too. We gave
yeah.
up on a lot. It's not serving us.
Hmm.
I don't need to fight for it, or I'll
Right.
find another
Oh,
one
yeah. Sure.
and they'll move on.
Yeah.
However, the first time, it's like you see me and my metaphors or my
Bring it.
analogies. We all grew up watching, like we'll catch shows on like movies on TV, and we might see the beginning, or we might see 10, 15 minutes in the middle, or we might see the end. But then one day, years down the line, we actually sit down and we watch the whole thing, and we're like, "Huh, I didn't know that happened." I was like, "Is that right?" It's because we we weren't present. We didn't stay and see it through. But once we stayed and we saw, we understood. And then we were able to blow our minds because we're like, I definitely didn't realize that this was my favorite movie. Or like,
Sure.
we didn't realize so much about ourselves because we weren't there.
Well, and I think it's helpful to not put magic fairy dust on being present, because being present, it means, can you be present in the pain?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think what you're alluding to is that when you are present, it's sort of, that is the path to peace, but it's through pain. It's not avoiding it. It's not on the other side of it. It's like, can you stay present when you're uncomfortable? Can you stay present when you're tense, when you're anxious?
Exactly.
Can you be
Yes.
present with the discomfort? Right. And that's the piece that I think a lot of us, I mean, when we're uncomfortable, we're just like, get me out of here. Right. Like there's so much resistance to the discomfort that we go cause a bunch of discomfort out there in the, in the world, because we're not willing to just sit with our own, right?
Yeah. Listen, if I have to deal with it, so does everybody else.
I'm not going to be alone in this. Come on.
Yeah. Misery loves the
Come with
company. I
me.
hear it. People say it all the time. I get it. I think this is a really big like moment that we're having because so many people like to just equate this as a surface level problem, but it really does and it really can run deep through your life and everybody else's life that you touch. Have you ever disappointed somebody because you were so anxious, because you were so in the moment of trying to please them?
Yes.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I actually, one of the biggest failures of my life was me trying to people please a whole community. So at one point, I was a yoga teacher and I had a pretty good name for myself at this really small homegrown studio, and the studio was closing. And I was like, I can save this community. I can do it, right? Like I can keep us all together. And so I took on the financial debt. I got some people to invest just enough, not too much, but community invested. And I was like, I got
Okay.
this, people, right? Like, so I got their buy-in. I got it. I got it. Made the biggest rookie error ever. And the rent was way too high, right? And because I was so committed to the location, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
wanted to keep the community together in the same location. And there was a reason those other people were closing those doors, right? So I got so committed, but my focus was on the community. My focus was on staying together. Like I was determined. I was like, this place is going to be blessed because we are keeping it all together. But I wasn't focused on what was real and what was, again, because it was about that savior complex. And it was like, I got it. And so I just about killed myself trying to keep that place open. I had a 1-year-old. My son was 1 year old, and I was never where I was supposed to be. If I was at the studio, I was supposed to be home. If I was home, I should have been at the studio. It was like I was I was a mess trying to make this thing. And we actually, our revenue was insane. We were like 150,000, 200,000 our first year. And I didn't feel any of it because it all went to rent, right? It was just gone.
That's a
And
big
so
misconception. Yeah.
yeah, so it was a total rookie mistake. I showed my numbers to the people investing, so they saw everything. I wasn't crazy, but I took it on. I took responsibility for it. So when those doors closed, I felt devastated. I felt like
Yeah.
I just let everybody down. And I went in a deep hole for a good couple years where I just took that as such a failure that I disappointed so many people. And so it took me a while to understand that that was my people pleasing in full force. I sacrificed my body, my health, my child, my time with my kid. Like I gave so much to it, and it was all in a massive people pleasing gesture. So yeah, that was a huge journey for me. And I mean, I was still recovering from, I mean, I had some tears about that maybe 2 months ago where I still was, someone talked to me about it and it was like bubbled up and there were the tears. I'm like, oh my God, I'm still holding this as a personal thing, like that's something that I did that disappointed these people. And so I
Yeah.
had to let those things go and grieve that.
This was really such a big thing. And hopefully, everybody listening, or if you are joining us on YouTube watching, really took something out of this. Either if you are that person who is a people pleaser, if you have felt like you lose yourself when you're around others, something that Kori kind of said today gave you a new tool, a new perspective to really help reinvesting in yourself, staying, a possible outlet in order to maybe salvage a relationship that might have started to drift because you had so much tension in and around yourself. Now, obviously, we can't let her go without telling you how to find her, how to connect where she's going. So, Kori, how can everybody get in touch with you if they want? How can they follow your journey? What does the rest of 2026 look like for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I have a website just with my name, KoriStrobl.com. And on there, I have blogs that I write about this journey and I get a little deeper into it more specifically, always in with my life as an example. So those are always deeply personal. I also have an online course that I created and just launched this summer for recovering people pleasers. And I'm getting really great feedback about it. So that is also available on my website. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot manage all the TikToks and the LinkedIns. And yeah, I just,
I get it.
so I'm just gonna, I'm gonna stick with the two right now. And so you can find me there all by my name, Kori Strobl, make it nice and easy. But I go on there and I just do little blurbs about maybe what's going on for me in my people pleasing journey on there. And then I also do little podcast clips and things like that. So those are the ways to find me. I work with people privately as well. And so I have 3-month package containers that we spend some time delving into it. So it's really great to do the course and then work with me privately and then really take that a lot deeper.
Amazing. Well, guys, if you just want to feel like you're not alone on this self-abandonment journey, if you feel like that you need to do the work or just have somebody to turn to, or if you think that, hey, I'm not showing up in my own relationship, reach out. Check her Facebook out. Start by watching, leaving a comment, and then if at any point you're ready to actually do that one-on-one work, I'll make sure I leave the links down below.
Thanks.
You can click them, you can follow them, you can do whatever you want with them because it really is about investing in you. We offered you the tools. What you do with them, it's going to be up to you.
That's what you do every day with this podcast, right? You just put it out there and people are going to do what they do, but it's meaningful work. And I really appreciate being able to have this conversation with you.
Thank
It's been
you.
really
We
great.
appreciate you. I will see all you amazing bachelors, bachelorettes, and partner people next week for an all new episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. Until then, remember, keep choosing you. See you guys.